What's up, softball players? Let's talk about your routines. So if you want to be a great fast pitch player or a great slow pitch player, your routines are really important on helping you be optimally prepared to play, to be ready right when the game starts, or right for your pinch hit at bat, or to enter the game as a pitcher, or whatever it might be. Routines can be long, they can be very short, they can be mostly physical, or they can be almost completely mental. There's lots of different types of routines. But in this video, we'll go over the 5 key elements of a good routine and how you as a coach or a parent or a player can apply them. All right, so quickly, let's go over the goal of a routine. So number 1, the goal of a routine is so that you do the same high quality things every single game so that your consistency really levels out. So you're not expending tons more energy one day and tons less the next. You're not doing too little to prepare one day and too much the next. You're doing all the right things in the right dose, which will take time to figure out. But then you're going to continue to drill down and do that every single time so that you know your fluctuations in performance are not because of improper or wildly different preparation. So here's my acronym, ROAST, roast. Let's start with the first one, R. So R means relevant. So lots of times players will do things that seem like good warm-up drills, but they're really just like not that relevant for their individual sport, right? So for an example, if you're a basketball player, you don't do a lot of like rotational stuff as a basketball player. So if you were doing lots of like rotational exercises with like a band or anything else, that's probably not super important and maybe a waste of your time before the game, right? Softball players, you do lots of rotational stuff. So some sort of like side bend, some sort of explosive, rotational exercise, also getting your upper body and your lower body flexibility going. So some good flexibility mobility drills. Those are going to be really important because you're going to be throwing and swinging, which are rotational, activities during the game. Another example is, you could run 2 miles before your game, and that would get your body really warm, right? You'd have tons of blood pumping, but is a 2-mile run really going to get you ready to play second base or to pitch or to be a catcher that day? No, that might be something that you do in training, perhaps, but a 2-mile run is not very relevant to getting you ready to be explosive and run short distances and swing the bat as hard as you can in a softball game. So make sure, number 1, everything on your list, you should be able to defend how it is relevant to you playing a softball game and your specific position that day, right? So if you're a catcher, you might not do a ton of like infield drills as part of your warm-up that day because you're going to be catching, right? So you might be doing more blocking drills. That's going to be more relevant as part of your warm-up, right, on that day. Whereas if you're playing, outfield, you might scrap the infield drills again and do tons of like over-the-shoulder drop step and maybe some extra sprints and some different footwork drills. So make sure your warm-up is very relevant to the game and the position you're going to play. Second is O. So O stands for optimized or the optimal dose. So imagine you had a headache and 2 pain reliever pills would cure your headache, right? We know that 2 is going to do the trick. Would it make sense to take 4 or would it make sense to take 1? No, it wouldn't, right? If 2 is going to do the trick, don't take 3, don't take 7, don't take the whole bottle, just take the 2 because they're the perfect amount that's going to cure your headache. And if you only take 1, you're still going to have a headache, right? That's what we do with pharmaceuticals and nutrition, right? We try to figure out what's the perfect amount that gives the person the effect that we want. And it's the same thing with good routines. So it's great to be a super hard worker, but before a game especially, you don't want to wear yourself out, especially if you have a doubleheader, especially if it's 95 degrees out, right? So if 6 sprints gets you ready to go as a shortstop right before the game starts, why do 10, right? If you're a pitcher, if 35 pitches in the bullpen gets you ready to go and every pitch you've spun them and you feel warm and powerful and everything you've done in your sort of checklist is checked off, why throw 45 pitches, right? If 35 will do the job, don't throw 45 because you're going to tire yourself out more than you needed to. Stick with the optimal dose. Likewise, don't throw just 15 pitches because now maybe you didn't get enough reps with your changeup or your drop ball or whatever, right? So make sure you're honing over time and thinking about it. How many did I do in the bullpen today? Oh, I did 32 and I felt great. Well, maybe let's try to do 32 next time and see how it goes. Maybe you need to add a couple. Maybe you need to subtract a couple. You'll tinker and figure it out, but you always want to do a similar amount so that you're getting the optimal dose and that all of your performances are going to be consistent. The third letter is A, and this is adjustable, and this is 2 different things. It's mental and it's physical. So physical, you're going to have different time constraints a lot of the time, right? When you get into college or pro softball, it's going to level out a little more. You'll always have a similar amount of time for pregame. But in amateur ball, You go to a tournament, sometimes you have 20 minutes on the field and then you got to play your game. Sometimes you have an hour on the field before you play your game, right? Sometimes you have a rain delay, all sorts of stuff. Coming in as a reliever, coming in as a pinch hitter, coming in off the bench as an infielder or outfielder or whatever. You're going to have different amounts of time to get ready to play. So you need to be able to have physically adjustable routines, right? So maybe it's a 10-minute warm-up versus an 8-minute warm-up versus a 4-minute warm-up, so that you can pull those sort of off the shelf depending on how much time you have to go, right? That is very important. The other thing here is mental resilience. So you want to make sure you're mentally resilient enough where you can say, hey, I didn't get my normal pitching routine because we didn't have enough time because the tournament director said, sorry, the other game ended late and your game's got to start quicker than we thought. Well, say you don't get 45 minutes to do your full starting pitcher routine. Can you be mentally tough enough to say, I only got 25 minutes, but you know what? I'm still going to go out there and have a great game because I've done so much preparation in my life. I had a great week leading up to today. And just because I didn't get my full perfect routine, I'm not going to just mentally crumble and collapse and say that I'm not ready and I can't do this, right? You have to self-talk yourself back into this mindset of saying, I'm ready to compete, even if things weren't perfect, right? You try to stick with your routines as much as you can, but when they get kind of blown up by circumstances beyond your control, you need to have the mental flexibility to say, nope, I'm going to adjust whatever I get. I'm going to make the best of it, and then I'm going to go compete. Real quick, if you want to support my channel and the work that I do, click the join button below. You'll learn about my channel memberships and the different options for you to become a member and get access to hundreds of VIP-only videos hosted right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and let's keep going. The fourth letter here is S, and that is for simple. It's great to have a really rigorous routine with lots of different things in it. But as a softball player, you don't want to have to carry another duffel bag of gear, like all these weighted balls or these, exercise doodads and, hitting gadgets and bands and all these other things where it becomes very complicated and you have to have very specific spaces and very specific amount of time. You got to set up all this stuff and jump over your hoops and your cones and your hurdles and all this other stuff. You don't want to be laying out agility ladders to have to do your routine. You don't want to be putting all these things up on the field to get through a normal pregame routine, right? So make sure you can continue to say, how can I make this as simple as possible? Have as little equipment as possible. It's perfectly fine to use some equipment like a band, like a little medicine ball, or whatever it is. Lots of little things are totally fine. You should have those in your bag, in your kit. But when it gets to be quite a lot, where you're like, oh no, I forgot this thing, or I need this thing, I have to do these things, and I have to set up this, then I have to set up that, it becomes difficult to execute your routine every time. And I think as a former coach who's watched players do this, it's like maybe you're a little bit anxious and maybe you're a little bit worried, and that's why you feel like you have to do everything under the sun just to be ready to play. You need to have some amount of, again, mental resilience to say, you know what, I don't need all these fancy gadgets to be ready to play softball, right? So this comes back to both physical and mental, right? So you want to try to keep your routine as simple as possible. So even if it's raining, you're on a weird field, or you can't go on the field, you can't connect to the fence, you have a different type of fence, you have like a, one without where you can hook stuff to. You want to just have things as simple as possible, so it's going to be as easy as possible to execute your routine wherever you happen to be. And the last letter here is T, and that's for timely or timed, or both. And timely means, and I've seen this many times as my career as a coach, is where players are getting ready for the game and then they get ready way too soon and they're just sitting in the dugout killing time and getting cold for 15 minutes before the game starts. That is not a smart way to do this. Especially with starting pitchers, you want to time your routine out and knock out all the stepping stones so that you're walking into the dugout with just 5 minutes to spare, so you can sit down, collect yourself, get a drink, and now you've got 2 or 3 minutes before the game starts, and then you run on out and you're ready to go, right? That's the important part here, is making sure that you're ready to go right before the game starts. Or if you're a pinch hitter, you're not just like swinging and swinging and swinging in the cage for 3 innings, and now you're kind of worn out, and now you finally kind of get your pinch hit at bat in the 6th inning or whatever, right? So whatever it is you're leading up to, make sure you're doing the stepping stones to sort of backdate it, where you say, okay, I got to go in the game in 20 minutes or in 2 innings. What should I do to pace it out so that I'm optimally warm and ready to go right when coach needs me, okay? And the other thing is timed. It makes sense to time this stuff out. And I'll put this image up right here, I would time out my routines. This took a long time. I learned a lot from teammates and coaches. I started to drill this stuff down where it's like, I'm doing this throwing drill for 2 minutes, and then this drill for 2 minutes. Then I'm going back to 145 feet for 2 minutes. Then I'm going to go to 180 feet for 2 minutes. And then I'm gonna walk in, I'm gonna drink, and that's gonna take 3 minutes, and then I'm gonna go to the bullpen, and then I'll have my final 18 minutes in the bullpen. I'll do from the windup for 9 minutes, and then I'll be in the stretch for 6 minutes. Then I'll have 2 more minutes to finish up, and then I'll walk back to the dugout. Really high-level athletes are very specific like this. It's very important because, again, I want to make sure that I've done everything I can to be as consistent as possible, to be as ready as I can right when the game starts, right? So make sure your routines are timely and timed. So I hope this video was helpful. Routines are a super important part of growing up as an athlete, getting more experienced and leveling off and becoming very consistently performing at a high level. So I hope this acronym ROAST helps you go out there and cook your competition. Ha 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 ha. Very corny, I know. But I think it's a good acronym for what we need to do here as athletes, all right? So leave me a comment in the description below. What do you like to do as part of your pregame routine? And as a coach, what kind of values do you instill in your players when you're talking about routine, all right? So thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit the join button below. I'd love for you to subscribe, but also when you join my channel, you get access to hundreds of other videos of throwing drills, deep dives into coaching topics, and other ways to get more value from videos that I have here on YouTube that are not available to the public. So when you join my membership, you get lots of great stuff, and you'll be supporting all the free videos that I make here for the global softball community. All right. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you here in the next video.